Today is Friday, February 24th, 2017, and today we got to talk about the whole transgender issue. It's a much bigger issue than I thought it would be, but I'm going to go ahead and cover it for you today. Now, before we get to a video, which may be kind of disturbing, so I'm giving you a trigger warning right now, but before we get to that video, I kind of just want to tee it up for you now. What's basically going on is that Donald Trump has rescinded an order or a directive, whatever you want to call it, from Barack Obama that was issued in May of 2016. And what the order said was that if you are a school, you cannot deny access, you cannot discriminate against someone if they're transgender. Now, this ruling was based on Title IX. It was an interpretation of it, because Title IX basically says that no discrimination based upon sex can happen in an education program or activity if you receive federal funding. And in a directive that Barack Obama gave out, he was threatening to withhold federal funding if you did that towards transgender students. Now, this really, well, the directive itself was crazy because that is not what Title IX says. It's an interpretation of Title IX, because in reality, being transgender does not actually change your gender. We're talking about reality. We're talking about biology. It does not change who you are. You may feel that way, and that's fine, but just because you feel that way does not mean that you actually are that way in reality. So that had actually been blocked by a federal judge in Fort Worth, Texas. So it was not actually in action, but it was only blocked temporarily, and it's still been blocked temporarily up until Trump had rescinded it. Now, there's a case going on right now in my home state of Virginia with a young woman, young man, whatever you want to call it. This person was born female, and now they identify as male, named Gavin Grimm. That's in Gloucester, which is in the Middle Peninsula. It's not too far from where I live right now, probably about an hour away, not too far. And this case, this person is wanting to use the male restroom, even though they were born female. And they're trying to go all the way to the Supreme Court. Now, their court case was based upon the Obama directive. That's why it's important, because even though it was not technically in effect, it still was on the books, even though it had been blocked temporarily. Because at some point, it was going to either be brought back up and allowed or rescinded, but Trump just bypassed all of that and rescinded it. So that affects this person, Gavin Grimm. It affects their case because that's what the whole case was based on. And now that's not there anymore. Now they got to try to refigure out what's going on. And people got triggered about it, including Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner.
Finally, I have a message for President Trump from, well, one Republican to another. This is a disaster.
But it was not just Bruce or Kate or whatever you want to call that individual that got upset. It was a nationwide thing. There's been protests. I've not seen any riots or anything like that. But what I will show you is this video where you see people out there with signs. You'll see just regular individuals talking about their personal situation. There was one case that will kind of disturb you about a woman and her family, but they've gone through, but you'll see it. And after you get done with that, we'll come back and we'll talk a lot more about the impact, what we're going to do going forward, and what the proper thing to do should be. So without further ado, go ahead and roll it.
It's a big reversal, slowing the push for transgender rights that zoomed ahead under President Obama. The federal government today took back a directive issued just last May that told public schools to let children use bathrooms that match their gender identity.
Why don't you stand?
Today's move is a blow to Mimi LeMay of suburban Boston, who has a transgender child.
As a vulnerable child, he deserves to go to school every day and feel safe and be affirmed as who he is.
The government now says a federal law called Title IX that bans sex discrimination in public schools does not apply to transgender children because gender identity isn't the same as sex. It's a victory for a dozen states that sued to block the Obama order.
You don't want to be intermingling the sexes, young boys and young girls on school trips, school locker rooms, school showers. That's clearly a violation of privacy.
Because of the Justice Department's legal U-turn today, the government will probably also drop its challenge to North Carolina's bathroom law that cost the state millions in lost business. When that lawsuit was filed, Obama's Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, had an emotional message for the transgender community.
We see you. We stand with you, and we will do everything we can to protect you going forward.
Back in Boston, Mimi LeMay says she's worried.
We can't give equal access to students in schools, then what's going to happen to all the public access laws that are out there?
All right, you saw that. Now let's get straight to the elephant in the room. I mean, come on. This woman talking about she has a child that's transgender. Now, they did not identify the exact child that's transgender. I mean, when they said that she had a child that's transgender, they kind of had the camera on one person, on one child. But I'm not sure if that's the person that's actually transgender or not. Now, I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she has a child that's much older, like 17, 18, like an adult that is her child. But she does not look that old to me. So I'm assuming that one of the transgender kids is one of those little kids. I think that is child abuse. How can a toddler essentially know that they're transgender? And if you're the parent, why are you allowing that to happen? It doesn't make any sense. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here is the overreach. I think what Trump did is good because it reduces the federal overreach. Basically, it was a national thing that says all schools must abide by this or lose your federal funding, right? Which is basically all schools in the nation, or a lot of schools in the nation, aside from some private and charter. But I digress. My point is that it was something that was just too overreaching. Too overreaching is going too far. And that's, kind of like the theme of everything that's going on here. You have this whole thing about gay rights. You want to be able to push that. You want to say gays can get married. You want to say that gays should be able to force somebody to make them a gay wedding cake, even though they don't want to. There's all kind of things that they're pushing. Now it's like, okay, we got that ball rolling. Now let's get the whole transgender ball rolling. Let's get more transgender people in bathrooms, locker rooms, all kind of stuff. Oh, and shame on Chris Cuomo for talking about a dad was intolerant on Twitter because he asked the question, what if my daughter does not want to see a penis in the locker room? I mean, that's a logical question. I mean, if you got a 12-year-old girl or younger, 11, 12 years old, middle school, do you want her to see penises in the locker room? Like live action? Why would you want that to happen to your little girl? That's not something that we should have. We shouldn't be intermingling like that. Just like the man said in the actual piece there from NBC, it's like it's an invasion of privacy. 100%. That is totally inappropriate. Man, we're dealing with a time where you got a lot of that kind of stuff going on. Students engaging in inappropriate relationships with adults, with teachers, guidance counselors, or whatever. Now you want to introduce boys in the girls' locker rooms and vice versa. It's just not right. It's just not right. And that goes into the whole thing again of taking things too far, giving the inch, taking the mile. It's just really too much, because it won't end here. It won't be, okay, you got the bathrooms. Now what's next? I mean, what's next? There's always going to be the next crusade. So what's next? Okay, we got the bathrooms. Now I want to identify as a woman in general, so I should be able to get maternity leave, even though I can't produce children. Weird stuff like that, and I think maybe in Obamacare, they're trying to actually push that because of some of these plans, they give men maternity leave. Now I understand that men can father babies, but they can't produce them out their body. I mean, I don't know. It's like the lines between the genders are becoming blurred to where there is no gender anymore. But how can you erase something that's been around since the dawn of man? There's always been men. There's always been women. I mean, people want to say that the science on climate change has been settled, but somehow we just got new genders every day, like new species we find every day. It's ridiculous. If you feel transgender, that's your problem. That's your business. I don't got nothing to do with that. But at the end of the day, your biological imprint, that's what you are. If biology says that you're a male, that's what you are. If it says you're female, that's what you are. You may feel different, and that's fine, but it doesn't change anything. And the reality here is that it's not even really about people that are actually transgender going into the bathrooms with other people, which I don't really approve of either way. Bruce Jenner really is my size. I'm 6'3", over 200 pounds. Bruce Jenner is my size. So imagine him. He still has his twig and berries now. So imagine him, no makeup on, in the bathroom, a women's bathroom, peering over the stall at you and your daughter. I mean, is that what you want? Now, if you're a man, if you're a husband, you got a wife, you got kids, do you want that dude in there? And the reality is, Bruce Jenner is not even the scariest one. Some say he looks scary. I've seen people that really look scary that are actually transgender. I'm talking about, I'm not lying to you. It was two people. I worked in the restaurant before. If you worked in there with me, you know what I'm talking about. These two people were 7 feet tall each. 7 feet tall. I'm 6'3". I'm looking like this. 7 foot tall, double D breasts, big butts, all of that. I was like, what in the world is this? But they were men. There's no women that look like that. They were very scary. So imagine that individual in the women's bathroom, or those two twin towers in the women's bathroom. Imagine that. You'll be surprised at what happens when you unleash that floodgate, and it won't be the end. It'll just be more and more and more. You'll see a lot more sexual assaults and stuff like that in bathrooms from people that take advantage of the law, not from people that genuinely want to feel equal and generally want to have that kind of experience where they feel like they're a woman. There will be individuals take advantage of the law for all the wrong reasons. So that's why I'm personally against it. And I'm also against it because it's always going to be something that never ends. So I think Trump did the correct thing here to leave it up to the states, because that's basically what he did. The directive was a national thing, but if the states can do it, then that makes more sense. I support North Carolina and the HB2, which was implemented by the former governor, Pat McCrory. And I think that if this directive came before the election in North Carolina, I think that he probably still would be in office, because the new governor won, I think, on that whole thing. But that bill is still actually on the books, and I think that they'll be able to keep it, because like I say in the piece, they won't get any kind of kickback from the government now that has been rescinded. Leave it up to the states, and it really should be a city issue, a city-to-city issue, because a place like San Francisco, you have a high gay population, obviously, in that city. So you also have a high trans population in that city. So therefore, if they want to vote as a city and say, okay, let's make all public restrooms in the San Francisco area or in that city, equal access or unisex or whatever it is, that's fine. But I don't think San Francisco's rules and moral standards should be applied to the whole state of California, which is very big. Northern California, like Jefferson area, or, IE, Inland Empire, I don't think they should be held to the same standards as a very liberal, hyper, money infested, a lot of gay people there. I don't think they should be held to the same standards as that place. So at the end of the day, I say go Trump, go. I think this is a good thing for the country going forward, to give more power to the states. I think that's the key thing here as I close. Give the states more power and not have everything be centralized to the federal government, because each state, each city, each district, county, etc., has their own issues, has their own unique set of circumstances. I think should be better reflected in the laws of the city and the state, rather than just having something that is so wide sweeping and draconian like federal law that controls every aspect of your life. So what do you think? Do you agree with Donald Trump and his decision to rescind that whole thing? I know he did campaign on saying that you should be able to use whatever version you want. I don't think he has really backed off of that, but at the same time, I don't think he wants to necessarily be a king. Some would say that he is trying to be a king. He's trying to have all this power, but I think decentralizing power from the federal government and handing it to the states is a better thing to do. So you can't just rule from Washington, D.C. over all 50 states of wide geographical, ethnic, just crazy differences in the actual states and the cities, different economic situations, different cultural, religion, whatever. I think each state and each city should be able to make up their own rules and laws. But do you agree? Or do you think that what Donald Trump did was a negative thing? Are you a trans person? How do you feel about what he did? Do you think it's best that each state be able to decide what they're going to do, each city? Or should it be left up to the federal government to control everything? And like I said, as I close through this time, when the federal government gets its footholds into certain things like that, they don't really stop. It's always going to be more and more and more. If the feds tell you to do this, they'll tell you to do that. And it's always going to be more and more and more and more. But that's just my opinion about it. Whatever your comments are, let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.